All right! I hope you guys like this one. This is a fun one to do. So yeah, let me know what you think. Helium Penda 97, a dark, atmospheric manga art. These depicted in a textured, stippled style, giving it a vintage, engraved look. Well, this sounds interesting. It's pretty similar to the style that we're going for here. So let's see where this goes. I do like the idea of having a textured background because it really does give it that vintage feel. And since we're doing a mouse and raspberries, we can play into that whole Alice in Wonderland whimsical kind of thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start sketching out the general shapes. I usually start with the eyes, then work my way outwards. We want to make sure there's plenty of raspberry action going on. And maybe even a little bit of the raspberry juice dripping down his whiskers. That would be cute. And he's obviously peeking out from behind the raspberries. Just being curious, little mouse. He's got his little pink ears sticking up and yeah, he's just a little guy. He's not gonna hurt anybody. Okay, so at this point, I've got a pretty good idea of what I want the overall composition to look like. So now I'm gonna fill in some of the details. I'm gonna add some shading to the raspberries and give our mouse a little bit more definition. I'm also gonna start working on the background. We've got that dark, atmospheric manga feel. So I'm gonna go ahead and just block that out. Now, as I'm filling the background, I'm thinking about how I can use textures to really sell the vintage engraved look. I've got a few different ideas up my sleeve that I'm gonna try out. But first, I need to focus on getting the line art looking crisp and clean. Once I'm happy with the line work, it's time to start adding some color. And let's start with the mouse. I'm gonna use a soft brush to give the impression of fur. And I'm gonna add some highlights to really make the fur pop. For the raspberries, I'm gonna use a stippling brush to give them a textured look. I'm also gonna add some seeds to really bring them to life. And don't forget the raspberry juice dripping down his whiskers. That's gonna be a nice little detail. For the background, I'm gonna go ahead and just keep it simple. We don't want anything too distracting. We just want to set the mood. So I'm gonna use a soft brush and just blend in some dark colors. I'm also gonna add some fog using a white brush. Now I'm gonna pull out my trusty cloud brush and just start adding some clouds to the background. I always love adding clouds to my artwork. They just give it that whimsical, dreamlike feel. And once I'm happy with the clouds, I'm gonna move on to the finishing touches. I'm gonna add some sparkles to really bring the artwork to life. And then I'm gonna sign my name in the top right corner. But while I'm waiting for that to dry, let's talk about how we're gonna bring this all together. We've got a dark, atmospheric background. We've got a mouse with a raspberry hat and a bunch of raspberries around him. And we've got a whimsical, surreal painting. So how do we pull all this together? Well, it's simple. Really? We just need to embrace the whimsy. We need to lean into the surrealism. And we need to have fun with it. We're not trying to make sense. We're not trying to be realistic. We're just trying to create a world where raspberries are the main attraction and mice wear hats made out of raspberries. So, as I'm working on the finishing touches, I'm really trying to channel that inner child, that part of me that just loved the ridiculousness of it all. I'm adding some gash marks to the raspberries to really make them pop. And I'm adding some soft, feathery lines to the mouse to really give him a sense of movement. I'm also adding some dots to the background just to give it a little bit more texture. And then I'm going to add a little speech bubble coming from the mouse. And inside the speech bubble, I'm just going to put a little question mark. Because that's what this little mouse is all about. He's curious. He wants to know what's going on. He wants to explore the world. And that's what we should all be like. No matter how old we get. No matter how jaded we get. We should all still have that sense of wonder. That sense of curiosity about the world. I'm gonna add a border to the artwork just to give it a little bit more definition. And I'm gonna color the border with a soft pink color. Because, well, why not? It's a raspberry-themed artwork. Why not have a pink border? And once I'm happy with the border, I'm gonna add a final touch. I'm gonna add a little raspberry leaf to the mouse's hat. Just to give it that extra little something, I took a slightly different approach with this one. Instead of starting with the line art, I started with a textured background. I used a combination of brushes to create a vintage, engraved look. Then I added a soft focus layer for the raspberries and the mouse. This allowed me to focus on the details without worrying about the background. Once I was happy with the raspberries and the mouse, I merged the layers and started adding shadows and highlights. I used a variety of brushes to create different effects. For example, I used a stippling brush to give the raspberries a textured look, and I used a soft brush to give the impression of fur on the mouse. I also used a smudging tool to create a sense of depth and atmosphere. To finish it off, I added a layer of sparkly dust. And of course, I signed my name in the top right corner. I think the finished piece turned out great. I love how the whimsical, surreal painting fits perfectly with the dark, atmospheric background. The mouse and the raspberries really pop against the dark background, and the gash marks and soft, feathery lines really bring the artwork to life. Overall, I'm really proud of this piece. It's a fun, light-hearted artwork that I hope brings a smile to everyone who sees it. Thank you so much for watching. I had a blast creating this artwork, and I hope you enjoyed the process as well. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more art adventures. And if you want to see more of my art, you can follow me on social media. Until next time, happy painting.